The silence in the elegant dining room was heavy. My parents had given my place at the table to my brother's fiancée during the family dinner. My mother approached me and whispered softly, "Elena, you are no longer needed here." I walked toward the door, swallowing my tears, when my grandmother raised her voice from the dining room. "Nobody is removing her. Elena is the owner of this house." My mother dropped her fork. It hit the plate with a sharp clang. For the first time that night, nobody knew what to say. My name is Elena Vargas. I am 27 years old, and I manage a small pharmacy in a quiet neighborhood. It is not a job my parents brag about, but it is honest. I have a steady salary. I work extra shifts when possible, and I pay my bills without asking anyone for help. I rent a one-bedroom apartment in an older building a few blocks from the pharmacy. It has no luxuries, but I got it before the area became more expensive. I usually walk to work. It saves time and money. My life is simple. I work, I return home, I buy what I need, and I try to stay calm. For my parents, that was never enough. My mother and my father always had a very clear way to measure success. My older brother Alejandro fit perfectly. He works at a major financial group and earns well. Since he joined them, my parents look at him as if he had saved the family name. From childhood, it was clear that everything Alejandro did was celebrated more. If he made a mistake, he was learning. If I made a mistake, I lacked character. After university, it became worse. Alejandro got a job quickly and started dating Sofia from a very good family. I continued at the pharmacy, living alone without a partner. For them, that left me in the uncomfortable corner of every conversation. When there were visitors, my mother always found a way to talk about Alejandro. "My son works at a very important financial group," she would say. "He is so responsible and disciplined." Then she would turn to me. "Elena also works. She is at a pharmacy." She said it as if she had to explain something sad. My father would finish with, "Alejandro knew how to take advantage of his opportunities. And Sofia is a charming, educated girl from a serious family." Then someone would ask about me. "And you, Elena, do you have a boyfriend?" Before I could answer, my mother would say, "Oh, Elena has not brought anyone home in years. She is too focused on her own things." My things were my job, my rent, my schedules, my entire life reduced to a phrase said with a smile. At first I tried to talk about it. Once after a meal, I told my mother in the kitchen, "It makes me feel bad when you compare me with Alejandro in front of everyone." "Oh, Elena, do not start. Nobody compares you. But they did it all the time. We are just proud of your brother. You can be proud of him without making me feel less." My mother sighed. "You are so dramatic." My father heard from the dining room. "Do not exaggerate. Nobody wants to hurt you here." But it did hurt. And if it hurt, it was my fault for feeling it. Over time, I started going home less. When they invited me to dinner, I said I had a shift or I was tired. It was easier to eat something in my apartment than to sit at that table again, listening to how my brother was everyone's pride. Then I would see the photos on the phone. Family Sunday with those who were always there. I was not in any of them, and nobody seemed to notice. The only person who did ask about me was my grandmother Carmen, the mother of my father. She lived in a small house with flower pots and beautiful vines. The house where my parents lived had also belonged to my grandmother. It was the first property she and my grandfather bought. When he passed away, my grandmother moved and allowed my parents to live there without paying rent. She said she wanted to help her son build his home. I heard that since childhood, but never gave it much importance. My parents spoke of that house as if it were theirs, and one ends up believing what one hears every day. There she asked me about my work without strange faces. When my parents did not want to help with my enrollment, she gave me the money in an envelope and said, "It is not a favor, it is an investment." I cried. She hugged me as if she was already proud of me. Almost 2 months before the engagement dinner, my grandmother asked me to accompany her to a notary. She wanted to arrange some papers for the house so that when she was gone, nobody would fight over anything. I did not ask too much. My grandmother was orderly and kept receipts from 20 years ago. At the notary, they explained it was a donation and that I had to sign the acceptance. I felt strange. I asked if she was sure. "You sign, my daughter," she said, squeezing my hand. "Trust me. I want to leave this in peace." I signed, thinking it was a formality for the future, something that would be settled later. I never imagined it was already preparing everything for a night like the one that would come. One Tuesday afternoon, when leaving the pharmacy, I saw my mother's name on the screen. I was tired with impatient clients. The last thing I wanted was another conversation about Alejandro, but I answered anyway. "Elena," said my mother excitedly, "I have wonderful news. Alejandro proposed to Sofia." I felt a hollow in my stomach. Not because I did not want it for my brother, but because I knew what was coming. Weeks of comparisons, praises, and disguised comments. "How nice," I said. I am happy for them. We are going to have an engagement dinner in 2 weeks here at the house. The parents of Sophia, some relatives and close friends will come. Her father is an important person in the group where Alejandro works, so this is not just any dinner. It has to be perfect. There was a pause. You have to come. It is necessary for the whole family to be there. The whole family, I repeated. Yes, the Castillos want to know us well. They want to see where Alejandro comes from. You understand. And please dress nicely. It is not just any gathering. She hung up before I could say more. I sat on the edge of the bed. They were not inviting me because they missed me. They needed me for the correct photo, the present sister, the complete family, the table without gaps. During the following days I thought many times about not going. But I loved Alejandro before my parents turned him into the perfect son and me into the daughter who was always missing. We had been accomplices. 2 days before the dinner Alejandro called me. That surprised me. Hello Elena, he said. I wanted to ask you personally to come. I know things have been tense with our parents, but this is important to me. I want my sister to be there. My brother did not remember the last time he had said it with such affection. Of course I will go, I answered. And congratulations. Sophia seems like a good person. She is, he said. For the first time in a long time he sounded happy without sounding arrogant. Thank you Elena. After hanging up I allowed myself to think that maybe the dinner could go well. Maybe my parents would behave. On the day of the dinner I took too long choosing what to wear. I chose a simple but formal navy blue dress. I did not want to overshadow Sophia or give my mother a pretext to talk about my appearance. I put on light makeup, combed my hair carefully and told myself, you go, you greet, you have dinner, you congratulate Alejandro and you leave. I left a little before 6. I arrived with time. The house of my parents was 2 levels with 3 bedrooms, a backyard and parking space. An old house with wide windows and floors that creaked. I had grown up there. When parking I saw several cars. From the sidewalk voices, laughter and soft music could be heard. I rang the bell. My father opened almost immediately. Elena, you arrived. Come in, come in. The living room was full. I recognized uncles, cousins and a friend of Alejandro. There were also people I had never seen. Everyone was dressed up with wine glasses in hand. I saw Alejandro next to Sophia. She wore a cream-colored dress and moved her hand while talking, showing the ring. Alejandro smiled in a way I had not seen in years. Before I could approach, my mother took my arm. You arrived just in time. Come, you have to meet Sophia's parents. She did not ask if I wanted to leave my bag or drink water. She took me to the window where an older couple was talking with some uncles. Ricardo, Patricia, this is our daughter Elena. Ricardo extended his hand. Nice to meet you. Sophia has told us about you. She says Alejandro loves his sister very much. I did not know if Alejandro had really said it or if Sophia was being polite. Nice to meet you, I answered. We talked for a few minutes. They asked what I did and where I lived. I answered, expecting the usual look of disappointment, but it did not come. Ricardo said, a good pharmacy manager has a lot of responsibility. People come there with real problems. I breathed a little better. From the corner of my eye I saw my grandmother Carmen by the window. She wore a dark green dress and her hair was gathered with a comb. When our eyes met she made a sign. I excused myself and went to her. There is my girl, she said, opening her arms. I hugged her. Grandmother, you look so beautiful. I always look beautiful. You are the one who comes more dressed up than usual today. I laughed. My mother warned me to dress well. Of course. For some people appearances matter more than manners. She said it softly without looking at anyone. I knew she had already noticed the atmosphere. I sat next to her for a few minutes. I wanted to stay there all night, but I thought I should congratulate Alejandro. I was about to stand up when my mother touched my shoulder. Elena, she murmured close to my ear. I need you to do something for me. What? I need you to leave. I blinked. What did you say? Leave now. Say something urgent came up that you have to attend to a work matter, anything but leave discreetly. Mother, I just arrived. Please do not make this difficult. I felt as if she had slapped me. Why do you want me to leave? The dinner has not even started. My mother clenched her jaw. Because you are no longer needed here, Elena. I will explain later, just do as I say. Before I could respond, my grandmother cut the murmur. Where is Elena going, Ophelia? She just arrived. My mother straightened. Nowhere. She just remembered she has something important. My grandmother looked at me. Something more important than your brother's engagement dinner? I felt my mother's desperate look, but for the first time in a long time I did not want to help her lie. No, grandmother, I have nothing. I am staying. I sat down again next to her. My grandmother patted my hand. My mother opened her mouth, but with grandmother looking at her she only smiled rigidly and walked away. A few minutes later my father announced that dinner was ready. Everyone moved to the dining room. The table was decorated with white flowers, candles, glasses, and cloth napkins. My mother had made a great effort. They began to sit down. Alejandro was near the head with my father on one side and my mother on the other. Sophia's parents had visible places as important guests. My grandmother sat in a side chair. I remained standing looking for my place. There was no card with my name. There were cards for almost everyone except me. My grandmother pointed to the empty chair next to her. "Sit here, my child." I sat down. Then I saw Sophia. She was still standing with her glass in hand and a confused smile. She was looking for her place. There was no chair for her. At that moment I understood. My parents had invited me to present myself to the Castillos and then expected me to disappear before we sat down. I was not a guest. I was part of the decoration. My mother arrived quickly. "Elena," she said, leaning toward me. "There was a small problem with the seats." "A problem? We need you to help us. There is one chair missing for Sophia. And you already greeted. You have already been here for a while. It would be better if you left so we do not make this uncomfortable." The dining room fell silent. Everyone pretended not to listen, but everyone was listening. Alejandro looked at his plate. Sophia was pale. Patricia Castillo gripped her glass. Ricardo watched my mother without smiling. I turned to Alejandro. I needed him to say something, but he did not hold my gaze. He leaned slightly toward me and whispered, "Elena, please do not make this more uncomfortable, just leave." I felt my face burning. Not only from shame but from rage, from sadness, from understanding that my brother, the same one who had called me to say he wanted his sister there, now asked me to disappear. I did not make a scene. I took my bag from the back of the chair and stood up. "Of course," I said, "I understand." Sophia did not sit down immediately. She looked at Alejandro and then at me as if she wanted to apologize for something she had not caused. My mother guided her to my chair. The conversation tried to return awkward and false. An aunt talked about the flowers. My mother arranged a napkin with trembling hands. I walked toward the exit. My chest was tight and my eyes full of tears, but I promised myself not to cry there. Not in front of them. I was about to cross the living room when my grandmother's voice stopped me. "Elena, where are you going?" I stood still. "Come back and sit down." Her voice came out firm, clear, loud enough for the whole dining room to hear. My father tried to smile. "Mother, nothing is happening. Elena understands. It was a confusion with the seats." "A confusion?" asked my grandmother. "You invite your daughter to her brother's engagement dinner and then remove her so another person can use her chair. That is not a confusion, Gustavo. That was planned." My mother turned red. "Carmen, please. We are trying to have a nice dinner for Alejandro and Sophia. Then you should have prepared a nice dinner for the whole family." Sophia lowered her gaze. Her parents exchanged an uncomfortable look. My uncles did not know whether to intervene. I remained next to the entrance without moving. "The truth," said my grandmother looking at my parents, "is that Elena has more right to be in this house than any of you." My father frowned. "Mother, what are you talking about?" My grandmother took a deep breath. "I am talking about the fact that this house was mine. It was always mine. I allowed you to live here without paying rent for almost 30 years because you are my son and I wanted to help you build your family." "That we already know," said my father. "But we always understood that when the time came the house would remain for us." "Well, you understood wrong." Nobody was breathing. "Almost 2 months ago I arranged the donation before the notary. Elena signed the acceptance. The deed is in her name and it is already registered in the public property registry." My mother put a hand to her chest. My grandmother looked at me. I gave it to Elena. I felt the air leaving me. I remembered the notary, the papers, the hand of my grandmother on mine. Until that moment I understood. It was not a formality for later. It was already done. "What?" I said barely. "Elena is the legal owner of this house," said my grandmother. "The papers are signed, registered and in order." My mother dropped her fork. It fell against the plate with a sharp clang. My father drank water clumsily. Alejandro opened his mouth but did not speak. Ricardo and Patricia Castillo could not believe it. "You cannot do this to us," said my father. "I already did," answered my grandmother. "Mother, this house is our home. It was my property. Now it is Elena's property." My mother squeezed the napkin. "This is madness. No, madness is that you have lived here for so many years thanks to me and still treat my granddaughter as if she were extra at this table." Then she looked at me and her expression changed. "I thought about it a lot, my daughter. You are the only one who visits me because you want to see me, not because you need something. The only one who has never asked me for money, favors or contacts. After seeing you make yourself small for years, I decided to put in writing what they never wanted to recognize." I could not find words. The table, the glasses, everything seemed unreal. My grandmother looked back at my parents. So instead of deciding if Elena deserves to sit at this table, perhaps you should start thinking if you want to talk to her about a lease contract. The dining room filled with murmurs. An aunt covered her mouth. Alejandro looked from my grandmother to me. Sophia remained next to the uncomfortable chair. Patricia left her glass on the table. Ricardo crossed his arms. My mother stood up suddenly. Elena, come here. Sit down. I looked at her incredulous. What? What are you waiting for? This is your place. We will look for another chair for Sophia, but you come and sit down. I almost laughed. 5 minutes earlier she wanted me to leave. Now she ordered me to stay because I was the owner. No thank you, I said. I no longer feel like having dinner. I looked around. All the faces watched me. I am going to my apartment. My grandmother stood up. I am leaving too. This dinner turned out less pleasant than I expected. She walked toward me and took my arm. Don Javier Ophelia, she said, thank you for the night. I suppose now you have a lot to think about. We left together. I heard my mother calling me, then my father. Alejandro said my name, but he did not stand up. We did not stop. Outside, the night air hit my face and only then could I breathe. We walked to my car in silence. I opened the passenger door for my grandmother. I remained standing next to the car with trembling hands. Grandmother, I said, did you really give me the house? Yes, my child. I thought those papers were for later. I know, and I did not lie to you. They were to leave everything in order. I just did not tell you that I had decided to do it now. Why did you not tell me anything? Because I did not want to fight before time. But if tonight they made you feel less again, I was not going to stay silent. My voice broke. This is too much. No, too much has been seeing you endure humiliations so as not to inconvenience anyone. Too much was that your brother asked you to come and then told you to leave. Then I started to cry. It was tiredness, relief, shock, as if something I had carried for years had finally broken. I leaned and hugged her. Thank you, I whispered. My grandmother held me tight. Do not thank me for giving you a place, Elena. That place was always yours. They were the ones who got used to taking it from you. I drove her to her house. At that hour, without office traffic, the road was calm. Before getting out, she asked me to wait. She entered and returned with a thick envelope. Take this, she said, passing it through the window. Here is your copy of all the documents, the deed, the notary certificate, and the public registry. Everything is in order. I looked at the envelope as if it weighed 100 kilograms. And now what do I do? Whatever you think is correct. It is your house, Elena, your decision. I drove back to my apartment almost without feeling my hands. My cell phone vibrated inside my bag, but I did not check it. When I arrived and finally looked at the screen, I had 17 missed calls and more than 30 messages. Almost all from my parents. Elena, answer, we have to talk. What happened today was a misunderstanding. I turned off the cell phone, sat at the small kitchen table and opened the envelope. There was my full name, Elena Vargas, on the deed. The house where my parents had lived for almost 30 years legally appeared as mine. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sophia standing, my mother asking me to leave, and Alejandro avoiding my gaze. At 7 in the morning, they knocked insistently on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw my parents in the hallway. I opened. They entered without waiting for an invitation. Elena, we have to talk, said my mother. I see that. Last night there was a terrible misunderstanding. Misunderstanding about what? My father stepped forward over the table. We did not want to exclude you, we simply miscounted the chairs. I looked at him fixedly. You miscounted? That is your explanation? It was an honest mistake, said my mother. We would never leave you out of a family gathering on purpose. Of course. Just like you never talk about how successful Alejandro is while pointing out everything I do not have. They remained silent. Elena, said my father, lowering his voice. We are very sorry if we ever made you feel undervalued. It was never our intention. How curious that you realized just after knowing that I am the owner of the house. My mother turned red. That is not fair. No, what was not fair was inviting me to a dinner to show off the complete family and then asking me to leave before sitting down. We already told you it was a mistake. You asked me to leave before the dinner started, mother. You still did not know that Sophia was going to be left standing in front of everyone. You already knew that my place was extra. My mother lowered her gaze. My father cleared his throat. Your grandmother had no right to do what she did. That house should stay with the direct family. I am direct family. I am her granddaughter. I am your daughter. Do you remember? You know what I mean. No. Explain it to me. He clenched his jaw. Your mother and I have lived there for 30 years. We raised you and Alejandro there. It is our home. It was my grandmother's property. Now it is mine. I went to the kitchen counter, took out the copy of the deed and placed it in front of them. There is my name, legal and official. My parents looked at the papers. Elena, said my mother, changing her tone. You are our daughter. You are not going to kick your parents out of the house. I have not said that. Their faces changed a little. They saw an exit. I have thought all night, I continued. I am going to rent the house. If you want to continue living there, we do it with a lease contract. 32,000 pesos per month. Payment on the first by bank transfer. If you do not want to sign, I will seek advice to start the legal process and recover the property. My father remained motionless. 32,000 pesos. That is absurd. It is not a reasonable rent for the area. The house has 2 levels, 3 bedrooms, patio and parking. I checked similar houses in the neighborhood. They are between 30 and 35,000. According to the condition, Elena. This is cruel, said my mother with tears in her eyes. We are your family. Yes, and for years you made it clear that I was the least important part of that family. You humiliated me in front of visitors. You compared me with Alejandro. You treated me as if my life was worth less because I do not work in a bank, nor am I engaged to someone with an important last name. And last night you tried to remove me so that Alejandro's fiancée could have my chair. We already apologized, said my father. Asking for forgiveness does not erase making me invisible. My mother was crying. My father was furious but contained himself. So you are punishing us? No, I am setting rules. You lived almost 30 years in a house without paying rent because my grandmother wanted to help you. Now the house is mine. If you live there, you pay rent. Like any adult, that hurt them because they could pay it. My father continued doing consultancies and my mother received money from a small family business they rented in another neighborhood. They did not have extra, but they were not helpless either. What outraged them was not just paying, it was paying me. They argued for almost 20 minutes. They called me selfish, the family is not treated like that, and that Alejandro was going to be disappointed in me. When they finished, I repeated the same. Contract and rent, or I start the process for you to hand over the house. They left without saying goodbye. During the following week, my cell phone did not stop vibrating. First came apologies, then guilt, then pressure. I always answered the same. I am waiting for you to confirm if you will sign the lease contract. Meanwhile, I sought advice. I did not want to make mistakes nor let emotion handle everything. I found Monica, a real estate advisor with experience in the area. She reviewed my documents and explained what was convenient. The property is in your name, she said. If you want to rent it, we have to make a formal contract, inventory, payment, conditions, services, maintenance, everything clear. I told her the family situation without too many details. 32,000 is reasonable, she said after checking comparables. You are not charging too much, it is at a defendable point. 2 weeks after the dinner, my parents agreed to meet with me in Monica's office. They arrived serious, dressed as if they were going to a hearing. Monica had everything ready. Contract for 1 year, 32,000 pesos monthly, payment on the first by transfer, services at their expense, and major repairs to review with me. Nothing strange. My parents read every page. This should not be happening, murmured my mother. What should not have happened was what happened at that dinner, I answered. My father signed first, then my mother. I signed last. They left without saying goodbye. That night Alejandro called me. I answered. What is wrong with you, Elena? He said as soon as he heard my voice. What are you thinking? Hello, Alejandro. Do not talk to me as if nothing. Are you forcing our parents to pay you rent to live in their own house? It is not their house, it is my house. Grandmother gave it to me legally. That does not make it yours morally. Curious that you talk about morality after asking me to leave your engagement dinner. He remained silent for a second. That was different. There was a lot of pressure. Sophia was standing. Her parents were there. Everything became uncomfortable. And your solution was for me to disappear. I did not want a problem to arise. Neither did I, that is why I was leaving. Well, thanks to the scene that was made, Sophia's parents think my family is a disaster. They are questioning everything. They say they do not know if I am the right man for their daughter. That you will have to resolve yourself. Know this, you provoked. I did not plan to leave my own sister without a place at the table. If you had not made the problem evident, none of this would have happened. It hurt me, but it no longer surprised me. Alejandro, I did not make anything evident. Your mother asked me to leave. You asked me to leave. Grandmother was the only one who told the truth. You are selfish. Maybe I am tired of making myself small so that you are comfortable. I do not recognize you, Elena. I breathed deeply. I did recognize you that night. That is why it hurt so much. I hung up. That call hurt me more than I wanted to admit because it confirmed something I was still trying to deny. He knew what they had done was wrong, but he preferred to blame me rather than accept that he had also failed. 6 months have passed since that dinner. My parents pay the rent punctually every month. The first transfer arrived on the 1st at 8 in the morning without a message, without comment. Then they scheduled the payment so we no longer even have to talk about it. I have not spent that money. I am saving it for the down payment on my own apartment, or perhaps a small house, something mine, chosen by me and paid with my work. I do not speak with my parents nor with Alejandro. At first the silence hurt. Then I began to feel peace. A strange new peace, like entering a room where finally nobody is comparing you with someone else. I continue seeing my grandmother Carmen every few weeks. Sometimes I take her to eat, sometimes we stay in her patio with coffee and sweet bread. She asks me about the pharmacy, about my apartment, about my plans. She never makes me feel like I am the second option. One afternoon she told me that Alejandro and Sophia's wedding had been postponed. Why? I asked, although a part of me already imagined it. Sophia's parents are still uncomfortable with what they saw that night, she said. It was not just the argument, it was seeing that Alejandro did not know how to defend what was right. I looked at my cup. Do you think they will fix it? Maybe, but Alejandro will have to show that he has his own judgment, that he does not just do what your parents expect of him. I felt sadness for him. Alejandro was my brother, and a part of me still remembered the boy who shared cereal with me in front of the television, but I did not feel guilt, not enough to fix his life at the cost of erasing myself again. He had a choice that night. He could have said, Elena stays. She is my sister. He could have asked for another chair, he could have faced my parents, but he chose to look at me without holding my gaze and tell me to leave. My parents also had years to treat me as a daughter, not as a comparison. They did not do it, and I am no longer trying to convince them. I have a house in my name, I have an honest job. I have a grandmother who loves me unconditionally, I have a life that does not impress at an elegant dinner, but it is mine. What took me longest to accept was not that my parents preferred Alejandro. I already knew that. What opened my eyes was seeing my chair occupied by another person and hearing my own brother ask me to leave as if my presence bothered more than the injustice. The house changed everything, but not because it made me powerful. It changed everything because for the first time I could set a rule and hold it. Now when I visit my grandmother and we sit in her patio, she always arranges a chair for me before serving the coffee. Every time she does it, I remember that night, the table, the silence, my bag in my hand, the door in front of me, and I remember that I no longer have to get up just because someone decided that my place looks better for another person. Thank you for listening to today's story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next story.